Hi besties, welcome back to my channel where I share my life and all things books with you. I'm so excited because today's video is a little different. The question I'm asked most in my life is, how do I read more? So I've put together my 10 top tips for reading more. I have also put I just ripped my nail. I have also put timestamps in this video in case they're useful. Tip 1 is probably the most basic of the tips, but it's essential. Take a book with you everywhere. I literally do not leave the house without a book under any circumstances. Maybe a night out if I've got a clutch and it won't fit. When I had my old Kindle, which was a bit smaller, and it had a smaller case, I often did take that with me on a night out, just in case. I think the worst place, not the worst, but the most unlikely situation I've ended up reading is at the top of the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur. And my boyfriend was just taking ages to look at all the sites, and we'd been up there like 30 minutes. It was a long time. And I was like, back to my book. I just think you never know when the opportunity or window for reading is going to occur. And there might even be just a small moment. It's nice to use that time to read. So take a book or a Kindle with you everywhere you go. Another little hack for this is having the Kindle app on your phone, which I don't love reading on my phone, but it's quite nice that if my Kindle has been connected to Wi-Fi, I can just carry on read like a quick chapter or something of the book I'm reading. I sometimes even have like a really not easy, but like a book, a reread or something just that I'm reading on my phone or on my Kindle as like a second book, because that's my book that I'm taking out of the house when I'm reading like a hardback that I don't want to leave the house with. I'm rambling. Take a book with you. Tip 2 links really closely to this. It is read in the small windows of time. If you're leaving in 10 minutes, you have got time to pick up a book and read a few pages. I think we often think that if we're reading, we have to like make it a dedicated activity or have half an hour to sit down. And realistically, who's got that spare time in their life? None of us. We're all so busy all of the time, and it's just about grabbing those small moments. I know some people don't like to read like this, and that is completely fair, but for me, that's how I think I went from not reading a lot at all to being a reader, and now I do dedicate big blocks of time to read, but I don't think I would have got to that point if I didn't start reading in small windows of time. I remember when I used to work at McDonald's when I was younger, and I literally would have like 30 minutes of my break, and I would just eat quickly and then have like 20 minutes reading, and it did make a difference. So yeah, try and read in the small windows of time, especially if you're really struggling to fit in any time to read. Tip 3 also follows on from this really closely. Swap scrolling for reading. We all spend so much time scrolling on our phones. I know we do. I'm there, like Instagram is my addiction. The other one that gets me is Pinterest, and I always feel like it's not like proper social media, so I don't feel as guilty when I go on it. And then half an hour has passed, and like I'm a teacher, so I'll look up like teaching ideas on Pinterest, and I'm like, yes, it's not it's not work though, is it? And it's just like eating away my life. If you swap that time for reading, you'll be amazed how much more you can read. And I would say if you're struggling to swap scrolling for reading, or like finding the energy to swap scrolling for reading, follow some really like inspiring book accounts, because I obviously have my Instagram, little plug there, at @whatgemreads, and I follow loads of great amazing people on there, and I go on there and I see them talking about books, and I'm like, that's it, I want to read now. I just feel so inspired when I hear them talk about books and reviewing books. I'm like, I want to read that, I bet to buy it, I need to finish my TBR. So yeah, if you are using social media and you are finding it hard to separate from that, get some bookish content on social media, because it should inspire you to go and read. All of this links in really nicely into tip 4, which is all about building a reading habit. I think this is where you really want to build reading into your life, and you're going to be really intentional about how you do it, because at the end of the day, if you build a habit, you're more likely to stick to it. So I think when building a habit, you need to decide when it is you want to do it. Are you going to set your alarm 10 minutes earlier and read 10 minutes before you go to work and make that small window of time? Are you going to read every night before you go to bed, turn your phone off half an hour earlier? My advice would be is not to make it too ambitious, like linking back to tip 2 about it being a small window. If you try and make a habit of reading for an hour every day, that's just not going to happen. I can't remember the last time I read for a week where there was an hour where I read every single day. That's so hard. Even if you just say, right, Monday to Friday, I'm going to read for 20 minutes before I go to bed every night, and like tick it off and mark that you've done it. And I think that is a really great way to build a reading habit. The best thing about this tip is the more you read, the more hooked you'll be on your book. So if you're reading every night, you'll then want to read maybe on your commute to work. You'll then want to maybe read if you get 5 minutes in the day because you'll want to know what's going to happen next in your book. Reading is just a bit catch-22 like that. The more you read, the more you want to read. So I think this is for me like a golden tip. Just set aside some time in your day where you're consistently going to read, and you'll be amazed at how much more in your entire life after like 6 weeks you are reading. Tip number 5 is such an important one. It's to read things you actually want to read. Don't just read something because it's popular or because it's intellectual or because someone, I don't know, don't just read something because you feel you have to or because it looks good. Read stuff that you really want to enjoy, and if you don't know what that is, be really curious. Use YouTube, use Instagram, find out what other people are reading and what actually sounds good to you. Even maybe like searching on TikTok, like, I like this show, what books link to this, because that might be a great starting point for finding things that you actually are going to really enjoy. I also think don't pigeonhole yourself. My boyfriend is such a good example of this because he only used to read non-fiction because he likes non-fiction, and I was like, no, I think I can convince you to like fiction. And he plays video games, so I was like, read tomorrow. He loved it. He had such a great time, and now he's reading the Poppy War series and he's loving it. So I just think, I don't know, broaden your horizons, find out what you like, but just focus on reading things you enjoy. And if a book is bad, sack it off. If something is bringing you that much displeasure to get through, especially if you are a slower reader and someone who doesn't have an abundance of time in their life to read, that book might take you a month to get through. You're not going to carry on with something that's causing you misery for a month. DNFing is controversial though, because I don't give up with it too soon because it might pick up. But if something's bringing you actual displeasure, put it in the bin. Little asterisks, don't actually put it in the bin because that's really sad. When we bin books, donate it to the charity shop or give it to a friend or put it in your local book swap. There's loads you can do. Don't put it in the bin, but put it in the metaphorical bin. One thing I would say is like a little sub point on this is it is good to read different books for different reasons. For example, I've set myself a challenge of reading 6 classics this year, which I would say is out of my like usual enjoyment remit. Though I have been loving them, I do have to read very differently when I read them. I like sitting down, focused, annotating, and I'm having a great time. If I'd have tried to do that a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have enjoyed it like I am now. But I would just say you have different books for different reasons. So sometimes that is great and I love doing that. But I would say 70% of my reading I like to do in the bath, in bed, cozy, on the train, not like annotating and really focused. So just weigh it up. Okay, it's time for tip 6, and I think this might be my favourite tip and probably one of the most recent ones that's helped me read more. It is to romanticize your reading. Make it an activity, make it fun, just celebrate reading. By this I mean, go to a coffee shop to read your book, go and sit in the park with a cute picnic blanket, sit in the bath and light some candles. Make it a really fun, wholesome activity. This is going to look different for different people because some people cannot think of anything worse than sitting in a bath. You might genuinely just not have a bath, or you might not have the right weather to go and sit in the park. I don't know, there'll be something that you can find that you really enjoy. For me, my ultimate pleasure is going to a coffee shop, ordering a really nice coffee and sitting and reading my book. However, I used to barely do this, especially before I lived in London and I lived in Essex. I always had to drive somewhere to go to a coffee shop, and I would never prioritise that. I'd be like, no, that's just a waste of time to drive somewhere, then park up, go in, have my coffee. I could actually read more, or I could do more at home and just stay here. Whereas, I don't know, it just didn't have the same funness and pleasure about it. If you want to read more, make it something like that's actually an activity you want to do. And it can be so lovely reading at home. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't know, why wouldn't you maximise your enjoyment of an activity? And you don't need to do that every time, but some of the time. And it does make it more fun and more inspiring when you're doing it on a weekend, and makes it feel like more of a activity, especially as reading is quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Individual? We're going to move on. I don't know where I was going with that point. This is where I was going with that point. Tip number 7 is read with friends. This links on from the last point, and it's just a different way to make it an activity, I suppose. But just go with your friends to a coffee shop or a park, or have a friend come round and you catch up and then both spend some time reading together. And I think it's just such a nice way to do something that is usually done in isolation, but do it together so it doesn't feel lonely. I do know that some bars and everything, and actually in some bookshops, have special events where it's just you take your book and you go and read, and that's my kind of social event. Tip number 8 is such a good one. join a book club. Not only does this hold you accountable, because then you have to get the book read, so you have to make a habit out of reading, it also is a great way to make friends and to build like the community side around reading. One of my favourite things about reading is discussing the book with other people, is reading a book that someone else has recommended, and a book club gives you all of that, and I think that makes you want to read more. That's why I think it very much goes beyond just the monthly book club read, and again, it's just a great way to make reading social. I think it also makes you read the book more critically. I don't know, not that you even need to read a book critically, you can just read it and consume it and love every moment of it. You can join book clubs online if you find that you can't like get to one in your local area. You can join them probably at your local independent bookstore. A lot of them have them. I would recommend going to one in person, but if that's not for you, that's not for you. Okay, tip number 9 sounds a bit weird, but it works. This is probably like one of my most useful tips. If I'm in like a reading slump or I'm struggling to read, do you know what I do? I go to the bookstore. Even if I know I'm on a book ban and I can't buy books, simply just being in the presence of all those books and realising how much there is I want to read and how little time I have left in my life, it stresses me out even thinking about it. And just being around all of those books makes me want to go home, curl up with my book and read and read and read and just stay there forever. I just find that is the best way to get out of a reading slump, especially if you've got like cute bookstores near you. If you've got a bookstore with a cafe, oh, that's just amazing. Waterstones in Hampstead in London is like my favourite place to go and sit and read. I just would go in there like quite unmotivated to read, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm going up to the cafe and I'm going to read my book, and I'll just sit there for hours loving life. I just think going to a bookstore is so inspiring because there are so many books to read, and yeah, I just love it. It's a bit random, but that's my biggest tip. That brings us to my last tip, tip number 10, track your reading. Now this won't be for everyone, especially if you're probably at the beginning of your reading journey, but if you're a bit further in and you are wanting to read more, I think tracking your reading is such a motivating way to do this. You can use apps like Goodreads, Storygraph or Fable. I personally use Fable and Goodreads. Yes, I use those two. If you're super type A like me, you can use Notion to track your reading. You can set up like a whole little page dedicated to putting your TBR and your physical reads this year and categorize it all. That's just how I like to be, and I know there are plenty of us out there that like doing that too. But I know some people also use like physical books, like notebooks, to track their reading, and some people's reading journals are literally like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. If you are looking at doing this, look on Pinterest. There's so many good spreads of what you could do and what you can include in your reading journal. You can also buy like physical pre-made reading journals if you want to track it that way. There's literally so many different ways you can track your reading. And again, this might not be for everyone, but for me, if I'm tracking what I'm doing, it does motivate me to go on a bit more. I would say do this mindfully. Don't let your reading just become about your reading goals and intentions, and set really realistic targets. Yeah, or don't even set targets, just track it as you go. I really like the fact that I can go back and look at what I thought of a book and what my rating was and then compare. That is all of my 10 tips to help you read more. I hope this video has been helpful, and I hope you enjoy trying to build a reading habit into your life. Reading is the best thing in the world, so good luck with your reading journey. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.